In functions, we learn how can we import functions written in one Python file into another Python file. So let's visit the imports and how they work in a local environment. Let's say we have a sample test.py file where we want to write print hello imports. Now let's see how can we import this file in another file. So here is our another file where we are trying to import sample test. So sample test is a Python file. To import that in our local imports, if the file is present within the same directory, we can just say import sample underscore test. The import statement we generally write at the heading or start of the file. There is no hard and fast rule to write it at the start. You can write it whenever you need, but it's a good practice to put it at the top so that anybody who is referring to your code will understand that what are the files or the modules that you are importing. Now, what do I mean by a module? A Python file that you import in your Python program is also called as a Python module. So every script or every Python file that you have written can be considered as a module in Python. Now, why would you need an import statement? The reason being, you might want to have a clean system where you have a related functions written in one file and the actual execution happens from another file. So for that purpose, imports are really helpful. Now let's run this program and see its output. Let's first run sample test.py. Python sample test.py, and it just prints that print statement. Now let's run the local imports.py. Python local imports.py. That also prints the hello imports. Let's see why. Here we can see that we have import sample test. So what this does is we know that our file name is sample test.py, and since this is a module, so while importing we don't have to include that extension .py. And when we import, we are telling interpreter to execute sample test.py file. So it will look for the sample test.py file in the current directory and start executing it. And hence the print statement present within the sample test got printed even though it was not put in the local imports. Now let's put the print statement here as well. Hello local imports. Let's run our program. Python local imports.py, and we can see that although we have only one print statement in local imports, the imported sample test file also has a hello imports, and that also got executed. Now let's use this feature for our advantage. Let's comment this line and create name equal to Rahul. Now let's try to import this name within our local imports. Let's comment this line, and now let's print the name variable. Let's run our program. Python local imports.py, and here we can see that although we imported local imports, the name variable is not defined in local imports file. Let's see why. The name variable is defined within a sample underscore test.py file. So it's available within this file. When we import sample test module in our local import script, we are actually asking Python interpreter to execute sample test. So it executes sample test, it finds that name variable is created, and it comes over here and then goes to the next line where it tries to print using that name variable. But that name variable is present within the sample test module, not in local imports module. Hence, we cannot access it. So for local imports module or a local imports script, it is as good as the name variable is not yet defined. So if we want to use that name variable present within the sample test module, we can use that with the dot operator. So let's comment this and type print sample test dot name. Let's run our program. Python local imports.py. Now it prints Rahul. So to access any object present in the imported file, we can use a dot operator and then access that object within our imported file. We might feel that if we have to use the name variable or any other object imported from the sample test module, if we have to use those objects regularly within our local imports, we might want to have a shorter name instead of having a sample underscore test as a module name. So instead of renaming that file, we can actually write an alias using an as keyword. So let's do that as st. Now we can use st as an alias for sample underscore test module name and then use its object like this. So let's comment this and print st dot name. Let's execute our program. Python local imports.py and it still prints Rahul. So we can use as keyword to create an alias of a longer module name. Similarly, what if we do not want to refer to the variable using the alias or even the module name? We directly want to call it as a name. Instead of calling it as sample underscore test dot name or st dot name, we can still do that using a from keyword. So let's first comment this and from sample underscore test import name. And now let's comment this and use print name. Let's execute this program. Python local imports.py and we can see that it still outputs Rahul. So we can use a from keyword to import specific objects or the functions from the another Python module by using an import statements.